Finally, they say it out loud and embarrass themselves completely as they try to explain to us where the problem with pensions in Germany lies. And I really have to say, now things are about to explode. So, every German citizen out there really needs to wake up and see that the problem is actually something different from what they're trying to tell us. If you'd like to support this channel, please like and subscribe. Let's take a look at an interview from Welt, and I'll just show you the first clip, then we'll talk about it, and you tell me if that's really the problem with our pension system.
Young people who can't control their small numbers will keep bearing most of the burden.
This statement is so disastrous and has so much in it, and I really have to say, what comes next almost tops it all. And I also have to say, it makes me deeply angry inside, but at its core, she's right. The young people here in Germany will have to bear most of it in the future. And when I look at the streets sometimes at the kind of left wing young people walking around there, and then on the other hand, I see how, for example, my son or others really apply themselves at school. And then I say, hey, I'm really in favor of him paying for my pension later. But I have to say one thing. How are we actually supposed to keep this system going? My son said yesterday, yeah, I'm moving away from Germany. Well, a well-educated boy doesn't want to live here anymore. It's too much violence for him. He came up to me yesterday with a picture and said, man, in Germany, he's 13, mind you, in Germany, Germans are milked more than cows here in Germany. This can't go on like this. So much for love of homeland, so much for the topic that the youth won't put up with it anymore. The youth are leaving. If you ask me, child benefits might not be the right incentive. However, in the past, there were completely different ways to prevent that.
That's what you're saying. It helps secure things in the long term. If you add new ones, it helps in the short term. You bring more money into the pot, as Ms. Basis says.
That's how it is, and exactly that sentence really got me worked up right from the start. If everyone paid into the pension system, including civil servants, by the way, then of course the burden on the system would be eased. Now, of course, you could argue and say, yes, but professional politicians, for example, definitely also have a pension entitlement that isn't covered by the state pension system. That's not correct. But it's tax money that covers all of this. If you now include the small self-employed person, he'll explain them in a moment, who saves up for a private retirement plan, the small solo self-employed person who has to scrimp and save for it, then in the future, something like this should, for example, be protected from seizure or something similar. Because that's the big problem. Many individual entrepreneurs have made provisions for themselves, and then the state comes in, overreaches, and takes it away from these people. But a bit more on that now. Maybe we should look at this more broadly, because constantly, yes, the problems in this country are so complex. You can't do one thing without the other and expect to get a reasonable result, and that's exactly what they're leaving out now. They're comparing apples to oranges just to come to the conclusion that maybe we need to tackle completely different structural problems in this country.
And since they're only including those who don't have another mandatory form of insurance, architects, doctors, and so on aren't included. Some groups have their own insurance because they provide their own coverage.
Yes, so the ones who would really put money into this system, the ones who would really have to pay at 25%, they weren't included. It's really, really important. They have their own pension scheme. Just imagine if they had to pay into the public pension system. That would be extremely harmful, especially for the base here, for the CDU base, for the SPD base. What are most of them again? Well, I don't mean the career politicians, the ones who haven't learned anything at the SPD, but especially at the CDU. Those are doctors, lawyers, yes, architects, for example. That's exactly the CDU's field. Those are the ones who weren't included, dear world. Those would also be the ones who, with 25%, and that's where it's going, would really be paying into the funds. But those are also the professions that are hardly affected by insolvency. Those are exactly the professions that, and this is really, really important to understand, you can't just erase them simply because you or because that profession doesn't suit you anymore.
Instead, you actually include a lot of these one-person businesses, like someone who has a market stall, for example. They often aren't big contributors, but you also want to do better.
They contribute now instead of relying on social welfare later.
Yes, but maybe they'll still get something from social welfare. But what I want to say is,
the welcome to Germany. In the past, they could still get a private pension plan. Today, that's no longer possible for these professions because now everyone is fighting to survive here in Germany. And I'll say it just like it is. Especially these solo self-employed people are under maximum attack here in Germany. These solo self-employed people she's talking about will end up getting welfare or Hartz IV anyway when they retire. But that would happen as soon as it's implemented. And no, the pension reform doesn't have a date yet. If that's implemented, even more people will drop out because working simply won't be worth it anymore, because they're not supporting the economy anymore, because they're putting even more obstacles in the way of the economy. By the way, economic growth has just been revised downward again. We no longer have 0.5% growth. We only have 0.4% growth now. Even though we have more working days, this country is just going downhill nonstop. And there's no need for anyone on TV to tell us, yeah, but Germans are just too pessimistic. It really is pessimistic here in Germany. That's just how it is, unless we get things back on track now and do it properly with structural reforms. And not just copy a little something from the AfD here and there or do a bit of election campaigning. But if you really tackle the right structures now, then you could save this system. But, well, every great empire has fallen at some point. Just look at Rome.
they also get entitlements then. So nothing has been solved. Actually, it just made the problem bigger. But that's not something that supports the pension system. What supports it is fewer early retirees and a later general retirement age. That is very slow, in my opinion, too slow.
What nonsense. Such cheap propaganda lies. Do you want to know what would really secure this country? Yes, what would really secure these pensions? The economy. Economic performance, getting people involved. What are the latest technologies? Are we keeping up with these technologies? Can we catch up to the world leaders? Can we quickly get rid of the people who are causing trouble on the streets here? Make space, recruit new skilled workers from the USA, from China. People would come here to Germany if taxes were low. Lower the taxes. Turn Germany into an absolute tax haven for really big companies. Throw money at people. Go ahead and take on another 500 billion if you want. Ensure security. Get rid of all sorts of reporting requirements and signs. All that kind of crap, like we still have to protect the people in Congo or something like that. Get rid of everything. Turn everything off completely, then say, listen up. We'll let you work for 2 years now. Do it right. There won't be any more big, raids or anything like that. Dear companies, sit down for 2 years. Start a startup, watch and see. Give deferrals to the companies that aren't coming anymore. Sit down for 2 years and try to save this economy. We'll leave you alone. No more stupid laws. No more being afraid that the tax office will show up at my door tomorrow morning and want even more money. No more Lars Klingbeil ordering customs officers to carry out raids here in Germany. And at the same time, anyone who commits a crime is out. These laws are changed. And what do you think will happen to this economy? What do you think will happen out there when business owners suddenly feel secure? And yes, even the master craftsman will just slip his employee a couple €100 under the table, like 200, 300, 400, 500 euros, just like in the old days. And the craftsman who also gets a bit of cash under the table when he goes to work for the neighbors and earns a few extra euros on the side. Of course, all of it away from the tax authorities, right? It worked great back then too. Back then, people were absolutely happy. No one spoke badly about their country. At least I didn't notice that in the 90s, sure, people complained about Schroeder. No question about that. But that would catapult this economy forward, right? The craftsmen already do some work under the table somewhere and put that money back into the economy. We all know, especially the craftsmen, maybe they build their own house and buy a lot of consumer goods and just go all out. Everyone here is up for it. But because if you out there, let's say, earn €1 on the side, you immediately have to be afraid, especially if you have white skin. If you're a native German resident, you really have to say it like that. Nobody does it anymore because people are afraid of politics. That would be my opinion on how to save pensions, how to save the economy. Because everyone would really be eager to get involved. But what do I know? Well, I only experienced those times, and I know how happy people were back then. And back then, things worked really well with the Russians and Poles too.